Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the HEG Limited Q2 FY23 earnings conference call organized by SKP Securities Limited. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the management's opening remarks. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Naveen Agarwal, Head Institutional Equities at SKP Securities Limited. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome you on behalf of HEG Limited and SKP Securities to this financial results conference call with the leadership team at HEG Limited. We have with us Mr. Ravi Jhunjhunwala, Chairman, Managing Director and CEO, along with Mr. Raju Jhunjhunwala, Vice Chairman, and their colleagues, Mr. Manish Gulati, Executive Director, Mr. Om Prakash Ajmera, Group CFO, and Mr. Gulshan Kumar Sakuja, CFO. We'll have the opening remarks from Mr. Jhunjhunwala, followed by a Q&A session. Thank you, and over to you, Raviji.
Thank you, Naveen, and good afternoon, friends, and welcome to our Q2 financial results call for the current year. As you are aware, the geopolitical developments resulting into an ugly war still continues after 9 months with no immediate end in sight. This has resulted into changing the dynamics in most parts of the world, resulting in many changes in all parts of the world, some with very serious consequences and some others with moderate consequences. The developed parts of the world like US, EU, Japan seem to be the hardest hit, leading to high inflation in some countries, high interest rates, and lower demand for most of the products, etc. Obviously, steel, which is where our products are used, has also been hit hard in the last 6 to 9 months, leading to a drop in overall production by about 8.7%, while some major steel-producing countries like Japan and Western Europe have declined between 5 to 11% in the last quarter. However, our government took some proactive steps to tide over these issues, and due to our focus on infrastructure spending, steel production continued to increase till June-July of this year, and then started declining. But still, a fairly small decline compared to the rest of the world. European steel industry has been especially negatively impacted by the exorbitant gas and energy prices, which are also having an adverse effect on regional steel demand. In the short term, the outlook for the steel industry still appears to be bearish. Steel demand is still being impacted by the fear of a global recession. Steel production is closely linked to the economic growth. World steel production, except China and Iran, shows a decline of 5.8% in the first 9 months of January-September 22 compared to the same period last year. There has been a quarter-on-quarter decline of steel production of 6.6% between Q2 and Q3 calendar year 2022, again excluding China and Iran. The two bright spots in the otherwise bearish outlook of steel production have been US and India, where demand is still strong. As per WSA's latest short-range outlook, world steel demand is expected to drop by 2.3% in 2022, after it increased by 2.8% in 2021. The electrode demand, which is a derivative of steel produced through electric arc furnaces, what we in India typically call mini steel, also fell in July-September quarter due to pushback of orders mainly by European steel producers and slowdown of production in other countries. We continue to see lower demand of electrodes in the current and the next quarter, but we continue to still run the plant at full capacities currently. Having said that, I would like to emphasize that decarbonization focus all over the world is gathering steam, leading to closures of many blast furnaces and replacing them with new electric arc furnaces, which is a huge positive for us, for companies like ours in future. US, which produces over 70% of its total steel through electric arc furnaces. New greenfield capacities to the tune of between 20 to 25 million tons have been announced. 6.5 million tons is set to start in next 2 to 3 months. 11.5 million tons by 2024 end, and the rest in the first half of 2025. Besides this, EU wants to replace about 16 million tons of blast furnaces by electric arc furnaces starting from 2023 end. Although China still produces only 12% of its steel through electric arc furnaces, but this has increased from 4% in the last 5 years, so 3 times. They are also on the path of increasing their electric arc furnace share to about 20%, as they also try to control pollution. We feel that medium to long-term growth of EAF is unquestionable, which keeps us confident of the growth prospects of our industry, and that's where our current expansion kicks in. About 2.5 years ago, we had announced taking our capacity of existing 80,000 tons per annum to 100,000 tons by end of this year. I'm glad to say that out of 6 different processes that go into production of electrodes, 4 are already commissioned. The 5th one is getting commissioned in the next 2 weeks, and the last one by early January. Once it is done, our capacity will go up to 100,000 tons. Our plant with 80,000 ton capacity till now has been the largest plant under one roof in the world for a very long time. And in the next few months, once it reaches 100,000, the gap between our plant and the next large plant will further increase, and we would start getting further economies of scale and cost advantages. And furthermore, our expansion is coinciding with the new demand of electrodes coming in from these new capacities of electric arc furnaces, as I just spoke. This quarter's performance was in line with the first quarter, despite lower sales volumes due to benefits of rupee depreciation, higher profits from our several hydropower generation facilities in Madhya Pradesh and Himachal, and also higher income from our hydro operations of our associate company, Bhilwara Energy, both of which did well due to early onset of monsoon this year and power prices going up substantially in the first half of the current year. The needle coke procurement for the last 3 quarters have been flattish without any significant increase and continues to remain so. There is no shortage of needle coke in the market due to slowing down of offtake by major graphite producers. Meanwhile, as some of you have seen our public announcements, we plan to diversify into making graphite anodes for lithium-ion cells, which form the battery for electric vehicles. And given that it is the first such plant coming up in our country, we see a good opportunity here over the long term. We are forming a wholly owned subsidiary of HEG for this new business, and our board has approved a budget of about rupees 1,000 crores for manufacturing 10,000 tons of anodes in phase 1, which should be ready by early 2025. We plan to invest another 1,000 crores for the second phase of 10,000 tons after the first phase is successfully implemented. At present, these cells or battery packs are all imported into India, and soon there will be a huge domestic demand for graphite anode powder as cell manufacturing starts shifting to India. We see tremendous growth in this business in the next decade as India starts producing and using more and more electrical vehicles. Friends, with this I would now hand over the floor to our CFO Gulshan to take you through the financial numbers, and then Riju, our Vice Chairman, and Manish, our ED, between all of us, we'll be very happy to answer any queries relating to electrodes or our new project, non-power. Thank you. And over to Gulshan.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, friends. I will now briefly take you through the company's operating and financial performance for the quarter ended 30th September 2022. For the quarter ended 30th September 2022, HEG recorded revenue from operations of rupees 598 crores as against rupees 722 crores in the previous quarter and 518 crores in the corresponding quarter of the previous financial year. Revenue for the quarter saw a decrease of 17% as compared to the previous quarter, while it witnessed an increase of 15% on a Q1Q basis. The fall in this quarter is due to lower volume offtake. During the quarter ended 30th September 2022, the company delivered EBITDA, including other income, of rupees 198 crores as against 205 crores in the previous quarter and rupees 167 crores in the corresponding quarter of the previous financial year. The increase in employee benefit expenses over the corresponding quarter of the previous year is on account of annual increments in service incentives to employees and provisioning for profit-related commission payable to CMD and ED of the company under contractual terms of their employment. The reason for the increase in finance cost is due to the hike in the repo rate from 4% to 5.9% by the RBI to keep the rising inflation in check. Other external benchmarks like MIBOR and T-bill have also moved in the same direction, along with increase in the working capital requirement in the business. Apart from the increase in finance cost from corresponding quarter of the previous year is on account of reduction of the interest subvention from RBI from 3% to 2%. The company recorded a net profit after tax of rupees 130 crore in the second quarter of FY23 as against 134 crore in the previous quarter and rupees 113 crore in the corresponding quarter of the previous financial year. The expansion plan is going on in full swing, and we expect the expansion project will be completed by December 2022 and ready with commercial production by early 2023. The company is a long-term debt-free and has a trading size of nearly 250 crores as on 30th September 2022. Now we would like to address any questions or queries you have in your mind. Thank you. Over to Naveen. Hello.
So should we start the floor for Q&A?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question and limit themselves to 2 questions. You may join the queue again, and time permitting, we will take your follow-up questions. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Sonali Salgaonkar from Jefferies. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Ravi sir, for the brief. It was very informative. Few follow-up questions. So firstly, 70% of HEG sales are exports. Could you help us with a country-wise revenue breakup broadly, and which countries have been instrumental in the weaker demand this quarter apart from Europe?
Manish, will you take that?
I would say, Sonali, revenue breakup, instead, let me just give a tentative volume breakup rather than the revenue breakup.
Yes, that would be helpful.
Yeah, about let's say 20% is Americas, about 20% is Southeast Asia, about 27% is Middle East, something like that. So these are the very broad figures I'm giving. So actually very well diversified, as you can see. So our shares in the major steel producing regions of the world, which are the Americas and the Europe and the Southeast Asia and Middle East. These are the 4 areas. And all these major countries we have a presence. So tentatively, if you take just a 20% share plus minus 2-3% each and every area. Europe will be low this year. Otherwise, it was about 10% is going to European nations. I'm talking about total. And then again, 1/3 of our production put in India. So if you add all this up, you reach 100.
Right. Sorry, sir, I missed the number you gave for Europe.
10%. We used to be there. Now it's probably going to slip to 7 to 8% of the total volumes.
Understand. And what was our capacity utilization in Q2 and currently? Because you did mention that your plants are operating at a healthy operating utilization. And also, what is the inventory position in the system for the electrodes?
See, we continue to run at a 90-plus level, and that's what we have been doing for the last 6 quarters. We have not slowed down yet, and as Chairman said, we have no intention to slow down, at least for this quarter. Our sales till April to June quarter was, we sold as much as we made, again in the 90s, early 90s. That's what our sales utilization was. But for July to September, it's in early 70s, and October to December, as we see, maybe it'll be in 60s, mid-60s or something. So we continue to produce at full capacity, but only from July to September quarter, we have sold less compared to our production, and October to December quarter also seems to be in the same way.
And the inventory position?
Inventory position is still fine. It's not unmanageable per se. Let's say we can say a month and a half worth of inventory, which is quite normal. And 1 month is considered very normal. And in our operations where we make so many sizes, so many grades, so put together, if we have a month worth of inventory, that's considered right. So we have 1.5 months.
Understand. And about the pricing of electrodes, what has been the trend in pricing that we saw in Q2? Because, in the first half, we did see some price increases panning out in electrodes like in last year. So what's the pricing trend in Q2, and also what do you expect to be the pricing trend in H2?
The Q2 pricing is virtually almost the same, I would say. Very insignificant increase between Q2 and Q1. You can consider they were just exactly the same. But in Q3, in which we are in, there is probably going to be, our average price might be about 3 to 4% down. And Jan to March, still we're not looking at it. If things continue to go like that, maybe that quarter also remains under pressure. Or if things turn around, it can revert to the current price levels we saw in July to September quarter. So that remains to be seen, because we are also booking very gradually. We still are booking for Jan to March quarter.
Understand. And for our new products, that's this lithium-ion product that we are entering, could you help us with the overall TAM, that's the total addressable market, which you foresee would be panning out in India? And correct me if I'm wrong, but your revenues will start accruing from FY26 onwards. Is that correct?
Yeah, Sonali, I'll have this question better answered by Mr. Riju Chunchunwala, as he's leading this project. So it's better that he answers it for you.
Sure. Riju, and would also help, it would help if you could give us the year-wise breakup of CAPEX, at least for the phase 1 of rupees 10 billion, which is set out for the next 3 years. Thank you.
So you asked about the overall market size. Let's say by 2025, according to all conservative estimates, the overall battery demand, the cell demand for India would be 50 gigawatt hour. And this is what all the companies have signed up in their PLI schemes, etc. also, which would mean on a very pessimistic side an annual graphite anode demand of 50,000 tons just for the domestic market. I mean, if you want to understand more in detail, this means around 10 lakh EV cars, or let's say 1 lakh buses. So, I mean, and our total size that we are putting up in phase 1 is 10,000 tons. And you're talking about a market size very conservatively of 50,000 tons in phase 1. Our total investment is around 1,000 crore rupees, which includes working capital, etc. And this would be in stages between, let's say, March of 2023 to March of 2025. So spread over 2 years. And we hope to start commercial production latest by 1st April 2025.
Understand, Riju. Very helpful. And could you help us understand the needle coke pricing trend right now? I mean, if you are expecting the electrode pricing to be slightly under pressure, is it safe to assume that even needle coke could stabilize going forward?
It has stabilized. I mean, there has not been any change in the price of needle coke. As I said, availability is not an issue. And before you ask that question, let me clarify. In our case, the conversion cost being fairly low, our fixed costs are probably the lowest amongst all the graphite producers. So the total cost of converting needle coke to finished electrode is not very significant. And as we see, especially America is still going very strong on steel. And as Manish just responded to your question, America also happens to be our single largest location for exports after India. So it doesn't take too much to keep the inventory of finished stock rather than keeping the inventory of needle coke per se. So we have taken a very conscious decision that this is a small, short blip in the market, and we see this market turning around maybe in 1 quarter, maybe in 2 quarters. So it doesn't tie up a lot of your money if you keep needle coke or you convert the needle coke into electrode. So for any short-term blip, we don't want to take the risk of losing the market and losing the market share. So that's the only reason we keep producing at 90%, even if we are not selling all that product.
I understand. So, and just one last question from my side, probably a clarification of a number which you gave in your opening remarks. For the for the decarbonization trend, you mentioned that 20 to 25 million tons of EAF capacity, greenfield capacity. It's likely in the US. Am I correct? And by which year are we expecting?
You see, we gave some breakup. About 6.5 is already starting in the next 3 to 4 months. Okay. We have the names, we have the locations, we have the capacities of each one of these. About 25 million tons overall that I'm speaking about. So 6.5 to 7 million tons is starting in the next 3 to 4 months. And by middle of 2023, or let's say by end of 2023, we expect another 10 to 12 million tons. And the rest from early 2025 onwards. It doesn't take too long to put up a electric arc furnace. Very much less compared to a blast furnace.
Got it, sir. This has been very helpful. All the best.
This is, mind you, this 20 to 25 is only America. And it's only America because America produces more than 70% of its steel through electric arc furnace.
Got it, sir. Very helpful. All the best. And thank you very much for answering my questions.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nikhil Sabu from SKP Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, sir. Sir, recently Graftech has to close down their Mexico plant, which was having an annual production capacity of 60,000 or representing 30% of their total Graftech production. Plus, it is the only site which is also producing pins, which is being utilized by all the Graftech graphite electrode production. So in the recent Concall, they have highlighted that they are trying to mitigate this NIP production by shifting it to either at St. Mary facility or at one of the European facility, but which will take some time. Thus, they have given the guidance of an lower Q4, and if the Mexico plant remain closed, then they are saying that their 50% of their 50% of their sales volume will get impacted in H1 calendar year 23. So, in such a scenario, if the plant remain closed, Mexico plant remain closed for at least for next 6 months, how you foresee the graphite electrode supply shaping up?
See, it is one of the 3 largest plants in the world. I mean, ours, if we call it the largest with 80,000 tons going to 100, there's another plant in US of Showa which is 70,000 tons, and this plant of Graftech in Mexico is the third one with 60,000 tons. And as you rightly said, the nipples, which is a very critical product with electrode. One electrode goes with one nipple. It's basically just 4% weight of the total electrode. But without that nipple, you can't join the next electrode. Electrode being consumable, every couple of hours, every 6 hours, 8 hours, as you consume one electrode, you keep adding one more piece of electrode, and that is where you need the pins or nipples, as you call. So typically, both these large companies who have more than one location for producing electrode, they have this tendency of concentrating their nipple production all at one place, and then they air freight the nipples to their other locations to sell electrodes and nipples together. So unfortunately, in this case, Mexico is the location where 100% of nipples of Graftech's entire 180,000 ton capacity were produced in Mexico. And that is the plant where there have been problems for about 2 months now. Now, whatever we know, we only know from the public discourse and a lot of papers that they have disclosed in the public domain. So basically, we don't have any more information than what you have. But the fact is that this plant has been closed for 2 months, and they have themselves said that they don't see an early resolution. And they're themselves saying that in the current quarter, which is the October-December quarter, their sales will go down by about 25 to 30%. And going forward, as their nipple inventory keeps coming down and down, because they're not producing any more nipples, and without the nipples, electrodes cannot be sold. It cannot be used. So going forward, if this problem continues for, let's say, the next even 6 months, then it is a problem. It is a problem for the whole industry. I mean, then this, whatever tonnage is available with Graftech will get hampered, and they've clearly said that in the recent reporting to the SEC.
Okay. So, can we expect a windfall volume coming up in first half of next financial year? Since we are already producing at around 90% utilization levels, while our sales volume would be somewhere close to 65-70. So can we expect to liquidate our excess inventory if there's any windfall gain coming because of this?
No, we will be, of course. I mean, if a large part of Graftech's sales comes down because of nipples, then obviously everybody else, I mean, we are not the only ones. I mean, whoever else is in the production of electrodes, that's the only option. And we have already started seeing some movement there. I mean, as Manish said, America happens to be one of our largest export markets, and the Mexican plant was majorly supplying to U.S. Graftech doesn't have an operating facility for electrodes in U.S. So most of their U.S. sales were coming from Mexico, which is very close to them, which is next door to U.S. So we've already started seeing that kind of a movement. I mean, the inquiries and the pace of negotiation and the new orders which are trickling in now. We are getting a feel that more and more demand is getting, let's say, distributed to the remaining 2-3 producers of electrodes.
Okay. Got it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Bhavin from Enam Holdings. Please go ahead.
Yes, a few questions. First, on the graphite anode new project, what you're planning, can you give some economics on what kind of product this NSR is? What's the raw material use? What kind of EBITDA margins this product can generate? What are the critical raw materials would be for, and what would be the payback you are targeting for 1,000 crores capex you are planning for first 10,000 tons?
Yeah, sure.
Some economics there? Yeah.
So on the capex, you spoke about 1,000 crore capex. We're expecting a turnover to capex ratio of approximately 1:1. The raw material, and that's why we have ventured into this particular segment, is that the raw material that we use for our graphite electrodes, let's say the needle coke and the Indian coke that we use, it will be more or less the same for this particular venture as well. So the raw material price would really kind of depend on the prices of that day. The selling price, of course, this is a highly value-added product which is not sold in tons, it is sold in kgs, etc. So you're looking at a much higher per unit realization of more than double of what you are currently seeing in our graphite electrode business. And basically the processes are quite similar, and that is why in terms of the technology, etc., we feel confident that we'll be able to do a good job of it. And again, the payback period, etc., what you're looking at, if everything works out the way we are seeing it, should be between 5 to 6 years.
So just one question here. So since you said that the NSR is almost double and more or less the processes raw material is the same, so can we assume that this business will have much higher EBITDA margins than your current electrodes business? And obviously, since this is a high-value material.
Business, as you know, it fluctuates between year and years. But if you take the current margins that we have in our electrode business, the margins in the anode business should be significantly higher than that.
Sure. Other questions on the existing electrodes business. You mentioned there's some 6.5 million, you mentioned starting in US in next 4 or 5 months. If you have the list, can you name 2-3 players who are expanding this 6.5 million electric arc furnace in US? And I think you said by middle of 2023 another 10 odd million. So can we get some large capex which is happening in US, so easy to track for us?
I can send it to you separately, but you will find most of the known large steel companies in US led by Nucor. I'm sure you've heard of Nucor.
Yeah. So Nucor, US Steel, and those are the most of the guys who are. And are they replaced?
No, US Steel is primarily blast furnace. Nucor is 100% electric arc furnace. Then the second large producer of electric arc furnace steel in the US is a company called Gerdau, originally a Brazilian company which was acquired by Americans. Sure. Then there is a company called Steel Dynamics. There are several others. So there are at least 8 to 10 large EAF steel producers in US who are adding these capacities. We can send you the details separately.
Sure. No. And so they are adding this capacity. Yes,
because it is public information, and if it really interests you, I can just take the names quickly. One is Steel Dynamics at Corpus. The second one is Norstal at BlueScope. The third one is Nucor at Gallatin. Fourth one is again a Nucor plant in Brandenburg. And then there's a group called CMC that's in Arizona. There are 2 plants. One is ArcelorMittal, they're coming with electric arc furnace. Then there's Algoma in Canada and US Steel. All this is public information, and you can always ask us offline. We'll provide it. No problem at all.
And these are the new capacities adding, and they are not replacing the existing either electric arc furnace or...
No, these are the new electric arc furnaces. There are anyway very few blast furnaces in North America. As Chairman said, they're already at 70% electric arc furnace share they have. So the names which we are taking are for the newly announced PF capacities. The replacement is nothing more than...
These are additional capacities. These are not...
additional capacities.
Sure. Yes. And the existing capex, I think ongoing capex from 80,000 to 1 lakh, if I remember, this was a 1,200 crore capex.
Yes.
And if I see your CWIP, looks like 853. So I think another 400 crores is the pending number on this expansion, which should be done by March.
200 by March. Actually, there were another 2 shops which you are not taking in there. And actually put together, we have spent 1,000 crores. There were some 2 shops which came before the expansion, which will also be, of course, a part of that.
So the pending is 200 only now, you say?
200 crores, yeah.
And there are no other projects. So 200 and your running capacity would be 1 lakh probably by March.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Amol Rao from Kitara Capital. Please go ahead.
So good afternoon. Sir, I remember that we were talking about tying up our power requirement, especially now that we are going to be operating another 20,000 tons. We're talking to, I think, the Madhya Pradesh State Electricity Board for a good power purchase agreement on good terms. Is there some change in that plan? Has that been done? Anything? Any comments on that?
No, we are not getting any power from Himachal. We have our associate company which produces about 300 megawatt of hydro in Himachal Pradesh, but that is all sold in the power exchange on a daily basis. So we don't we don't get any power from Himachal. It's not practical in India to get power from Himachal to Madhya Pradesh. The transmission charges and everything is so high that it doesn't make sense. So we are buying 100% from the Madhya Pradesh Electricity Board, and more so 100% because in the last 12 months, 18 months, given the cost of coal and the issues related with carbon emissions of coal and all that. So we have about 65 megawatts of captive coal generation at the same location as graphite, so which is not operating for the last 2.5 years now, because we are able to get everything that we need from the electricity board, which is much cheaper than producing your own power today.
Got it. And so, will this arrangement also continue for the additional 20,000 tons that is coming on board?
Yeah. We have that agreement.
All right. And about the new capex, sir, this is going to be again at the Mandi Deep facility only that we operate currently.
You're talking of the graphite expansion?
Yes, sir. The anode.
No. Anode is not coming in Mandi Deep. I mean, we are still to decide the location. We are weighing 2 or 3 options within Madhya Pradesh.
All right. So within Madhya Pradesh itself.
It will be Madhya Pradesh, but it has nothing to do with the existing graphite plant.
Got it, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Yash Dantewadia from Dante Equity. Please go ahead.
Hello. Hi. Sir, this existing capacity is 80,000 and you're coming up with 20,000 more.
Yash, the audio is not clear from your line. Please use the handset mode.
Hello. Am I audible now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So your existing capacity is 80,000 and you've added 20,000 more. So by when do you see this 20,000 capacity getting utilized by, let's say, 90-95%? How much time do you think it'll take you to reach there?
You see, as I explained earlier, I mean, there are 6 different processes into the production of electrodes. So out of 6, so there are 6 shops or 6 processes which are being newly built for this 20,000 tons, out of which 4 have already started. The 5th one is starting in the next 2-3 weeks, and the last one will start in early January. And the total cycle for producing electrodes is between 2 to 3 months, 2 to 4 months, let's say. So in the real sense, the entire 20,000 tons will be available, let's say, from April, May. We'll start the 6th process, the last process, in January, but it will take us between 3 to 4 months for us to produce finished product out of this, because the process itself is anywhere between 3 to 4 months.
And when do you see this reaching to your, what's your existing capacity utilization for your 80,000 capacity?
As Manish said, I mean,
we are running at 90, which we said in the beginning, we are running at 92, 93, 94% level for all these quarters and continue to do so. And sales from this quarter onwards is depressed.
So This 20,000 that's coming up, which will take another 6 months, to get on full-fledged. How long do you think this will take to reach 90% capacity utilization?
It depends upon global conditions, because steel is, as soon as the steel production in the world gets back on track, we'll be soon seeing this capacity absorbed. But let's say, internally, what we talk about, let's say between 1 to 2 years, we should be able to, let's say by 2023 end or 2024, we should be at that 90% level, because the new demand of electrodes will come in the world with new electric arc furnaces. So we expect to get back at the 90% level within 1 to 2 years. That is 2023 and 2024.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking my questions. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1. Participants, to ask a question, you may press star and 1 at this time. Reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1. The next question is from the line of Pratim Roy from B&K Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi sir. Thanks for the opportunity. Currently, just you mentioned that you are working with a 90% capacity utilization. So, what is the volume number? Means how much you have sold in the market, and what is the NSR? If you can give some light on that. You made mention that the 2Q and 1Q NSR is almost in line with the same trend. So, I just want to articulate the number. How much is the NSR currently?
See, if I've heard you clearly, I didn't hear you clearly, but I think what you're asking, how much is sold in this quarter of Q2. So that is in early 70s. And for the October to December, that's probably be in mid-60s, because we're already in the middle of November, so we can see where we are going. And for the next quarter, we now have started booking for Jan to March quarter, so that remains to be seen what level we can achieve.
Okay, sir. What is the current realization for the graphite electrode that we are enjoying right now?
I mean, I cannot give a specific figure on a price, but it's very easy for you to calculate, because all we do here is electrode. So if you have the capacity utilization, which I already said, then you have the revenue, just have to divide it, but don't let me do that.
Got it, sir. Got it, sir. Thank you, sir. 70% is the level. Okay, got it. That's all, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Participants, to ask a question, you may press star and 1. Reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1. Participants, to ask a question, you may press star and 1 at this time. The next question is from the line of Sanjay Jain, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thanks for taking my question. Wanted to get a little bit more sense on this graphite anode, that new capex that you have announced about 1,000 crore. Where are we getting this technology from, and what could be the? Could you give some little bit more on the process? Want to get some sense on what kind of conversion cost would be and what parameters would be driving those conversion costs.
So technology-wise, today, let's say 90-95% of the entire anode production in the world is in China. And process-wise, this comprises of 4-5 different processes like crushing, grinding, coating the raw material with pitch. And then the main process in this is the graphitizing of the raw material, in which basically where we see as HEG, we have a 50-year experience in the main process, which is the graphitizing of the raw material. So technology-wise, we are pretty confident that a lot of technology is inbuilt in what we have within HEG. Some bit of technology we will be outsourcing from some European companies and Chinese companies. And process itself, like I said, it's like you have 5 or 6 different processes in electrodes. You have 5 or 6 different processes in this. But the raw material for both the products is the same. And the
Hello.
Hello.
I'm not able to hear now.
Ladies and gentlemen, please hold the line while we reconnect the management. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for patiently waiting. The line is reconnected. Over to you, sir.
Hello?
Mr. Jain, please repeat your question.
Yeah, I was asking about what kind of process is there in this making of graphite anodes. And you were explaining there are multiple processes including graphitization. And then we lost the line.
Yeah, so that's what I was explaining, that the 4 or 5 processes, and one of the major processes is the graphitization, in which the process is quite similar to what we have in the electrode space, which is where our expertise comes in. And here the final product is basically crushed graphite powder, which is very, very small in size and made according to the customer's requirement in different shapes or in different kind of qualities. So really, in terms of the technology and processes, we are very confident that we'll be able to do a good job in this particular product, and seeing the kind of demand that's going to be there in the next 10 years, the potential to, keep adding capacity in second or third phases is tremendous.
Okay. Another thing that I wanted to understand is what kind of yields are there in this? Like, if you take one, what are the raw material, like what needle coke you mentioned, and you also talked about pitch. So for making 1 kg of finished product, what quantities of raw material is needed?
I mean, you can talk about it. It's something very similar to graphite electrode, which will be around 1.2, 1.3 kgs for the finished raw material. 1.2 to 1.3 kgs of raw material to the finished product. And the raw material would be a mix of, depending on quality, a mix of Indian coke and imported coke that you have, needle coke. But the needle coke would be very, very limited in its application. Mostly our entire requirement should be met out of the Indian coke itself.
I see. So you're saying that there's less requirement of needle coke, more requirement of Indian coke.
Correct.
Okay, so overall raw material cost could be actually lower per ton of finished product.
Well, raw material, obviously the raw material cost as a percentage of selling price will be significantly lower, but even on a per kg basis it should be overall lower because the raw material requirement is not what we have for our UHP electrodes. It's more or less what we have for the other electrodes that we have.
Okay. So now, since the raw material is cheaper on per ton basis, then why is the price of the finished product twice as compared to graphite electrode? Is there too much of processing cost involved in this, or is it because of the lower throughput per amount of capex that we are incurring?
It's a mix of all. It's a mix of demand supply, it's a mix of technology, and obviously it's a mix of the lower throughput. If you're talking about a 1:1 capital to turnover ratio, obviously we will need to have a very high EBITDA over here in order to be, financially very viable. But even today, what we are seeing in the last 5-7 years, the selling prices are stable for this particular product, and the processing cost is very similar to what we have for the graphite electrodes. And going forward also, this is not expected to come down drastically because of the simple fact that the requirement for anode powder is going to go up very, very substantially, not just in India but across the world. So that demand-supply mismatch will always be there. And then you have this 2-year lag time of putting up any new capacities.
Got it. So basically you're saying that raw material cost per ton of finished product will be lower, conversion cost would be similar.
Correct.
And I missed, I think you mentioned in earlier discussion that what will be the tonnage out of this 1,000 crore capex?
We are talking about a 10,000 tons per year plant, which would give us approximately a 1:1 capital investment to turnover ratio also.
Got it. Thanks.
So in the first phase, we are going for 10,000 tons. In the second phase, we'll add another line of 10,000 tons.
Got it. Thank you so much for answering all this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. As there are no further questions, I'd like to hand over the conference to Mr. Riju Jhunjhunwala for the closing remarks. Over to you, Riju. Hello?
I think, Manish, the closing remarks would be directed towards you, I guess.
Okay. So let me say, friends, thank you very much for attending our call, and we remain very optimistic for our business, electrodes, especially with this sunrise thing anode coming up. We see a bright future for HEG, not only in our bread and butter business of graphite electrode, but also for this new product called anodes, where we are positioning ourselves as a green energy company. So we look forward to speaking to you after the next quarter results are out. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you, Manishji. Thank you, Riju.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of SKP Securities Limited, that concludes this conference call. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.